It was one of the greatest British sitcoms of all time. A show so razor-sharp, so hilariously chaotic, that even decades later, fans still quote its most outrageous lines. Yet, despite its enduring legacy, Fawlty Towers lasted only 12 episodes, vanishing as suddenly as it had appeared. The story of how it came to be, and almost didn't, begins in the most unlikely of places: a seaside hotel in Torquay, England. Back in 1970, John Cleese and the Monty Python team were filming Monty Python's Flying Circus and needed a place to stay. Instead of a luxurious retreat, they ended up at the Glen Eagles Hotel, an establishment that would later inspire one of the most memorable characters in television history. The hotel was run by Donald Sinclair, a man whose behavior could only be described as chaotic. He was rude, paranoid, and somehow seemed to delight in making guests uncomfortable. A simple oversight could erupt into a full-blown disaster. When one Monty Python member left his briefcase in the lobby, Sinclair immediately suspected it was a bomb and hurled it over a wall. On another occasion, Terry Gilliam, using a knife and fork in the wrong hand, was corrected as if committing a grave crime. Cleese observed these interactions with a mixture of shock and fascination, recognizing in Sinclair's absurd behavior a source of pure comedy gold. Years later, when Cleese and his then-wife Connie Booth began creating Fawlty Towers, they drew heavily on these experiences. The result was Basil Fawlty, the short-tempered, incompetent, socially inept hotel owner, whose every attempt to run his establishment only made things worse. While the character exaggerated Sinclair's quirks, the essence remained: a man whose personal failings and insecurities turned every encounter into a comedy of errors. Ironically, Sinclair never knew he was the inspiration, passing away in 1981 without realizing his disastrous hospitality had spawned one of the greatest sitcoms in British television. The creation of Fawlty Towers was not a solo effort. John Cleese and Connie Booth were a perfect writing duo, blending sharp wit with a keen eye for farcical absurdity. After the Glen Eagles Hotel experience, they envisioned a show centered on a hotel where every guest interaction spiraled out of control. The aim wasn't merely slapstick. They wanted razor-sharp humor, fast-paced dialogue, and characters whose eccentricities felt both exaggerated and oddly real. When the show premiered on BBC Two in 1975, it wasn't an instant hit with critics. Some found it chaotic or messy, failing to appreciate its brilliance. But audiences quickly embraced the show, captivated by Basil's rage, Sybil's commanding presence, Polly's intelligence, and Manuel's endearing cluelessness. The sitcom's genius lay not only in its writing, but also in its cast. Cleese brought Basil to life with a whirlwind of frustration, sarcasm, and barely contained rage. Prunella Scales, as Sybil Fawlty, perfectly embodied the upper-middle-class authority figure, balancing sharp wit with a commanding presence. Connie Booth's Polly served as the calm, intelligent counterpoint to Basil's chaos, and Andrew Sachs's Manuel, the well-meaning but perpetually confused Spanish waiter, delivered a performance that was simultaneously heartwarming and hilarious. The chemistry between them turned each episode into a masterclass of comedic timing. Yet, the show's brevity and perfection were not without controversy. One episode, The Germans, became particularly infamous. The storyline featured Basil, suffering a concussion, attempting to manage a visit from German guests. His repeated admonishments to "don't mention the war," immediately followed by awkwardly referencing it, culminated in a goose-step impersonation of Hitler. While audiences in Britain largely found it hilarious, some viewers, including Germans and those with personal ties to the war, felt uncomfortable. The BBC debated whether the episode might tarnish its reputation. Even today, streaming platforms sometimes restrict or edit portions of this episode, sparking discussions about historical context, satire, and political correctness. John Cleese has consistently defended it, arguing that the joke lampoons Basil's ignorance rather than glorifying any offensive ideology. Beyond the humor, Fawlty Towers had real depth. Basil was more than a comic caricature. He was a man at war with himself, striving to impress guests, yet failing spectacularly. Each outburst revealed his insecurities and inability to manage both his emotions and his hotel. Manuel's repeated missteps, Sybil's dominance, and Polly's reasoned interventions created a dynamic that balanced chaos with clever storytelling. The show's short run, just 12 episodes, never limited its cultural impact. Repeats and word of mouth ensured that, over the years, Fawlty Towers cemented itself as a classic, influencing British comedy for generations. By 2000, the British Film Institute named it the greatest British television series of all time, a testament to its enduring appeal. Behind the scenes, the cast and crew endured their own share of challenges. Cleese and Booth were divorced by the time the second season aired, yet their professionalism allowed them to continue collaborating without letting personal tensions affect the production. Andrew Sachs endured physical comedy that left him bruised and burned, yet his dedication made Manuel one of television's most beloved characters. Prunella Scales and Ballard Berkeley, along with supporting actors like Brian Hall and the duo Gilly Flower and Renee Roberts, brought depth and nuance to roles that could have easily been caricatures. Despite physical risks, personal heartbreak, and the pressure of maintaining comedic perfection, the cast delivered performances that remain iconic. The influence of Fawlty Towers extends beyond television. Its characters, catchphrases, and comedic scenarios remain referenced in pop culture worldwide. Manuel's catchphrase, Basil's rants, and Sybil's commanding presence have become shorthand for chaos, frustration, and authority in humorous contexts. The show's ability to blend absurdity with subtle social commentary is part of its lasting appeal, proving that great comedy often comes from both observation and exaggeration. Today, nearly 50 years after its debut, Fawlty Towers continues to captivate audiences. Plans for a 2024 reboot, led by John Cleese and featuring his daughter Camilla, have sparked both excitement and cautious anticipation. Will the show survive in a modern era of political correctness and global sensitivity? Only time will tell. But one thing is undeniable: the original series remains untouchable, a perfect storm of timing, talent, and comedic genius. From the disastrous Glen Eagles Hotel that inspired Basil Fawlty to the unforgettable chemistry of Cleese, Booth, Scales, and Sachs, Fawlty Towers proves that chaos, when harnessed correctly, can create timeless entertainment. In the end, Fawlty Towers was more than a sitcom. It was a masterclass in character, timing, and absurdity. It balanced humor with social observation, slapstick with wit, and disaster with brilliance. Despite controversies, behind-the-scenes challenges, and only 12 episodes, it remains a cornerstone of British comedy, proving that sometimes the most chaotic moments, both on-screen and off, create the most enduring art. Whether laughing at Basil's explosive temper, Manuel's earnest mistakes, or Sybil's sharp commands, viewers continue to be reminded that great comedy, like life, thrives on the unexpected, the absurd, and the imperfect.